Daniel Brooks stepped out of a yellow taxi in front of a grand, luxury hotel in Manhattan, its glass doors gleaming under the afternoon sun. The building stood tall and proud, a symbol of wealth and comfort, something Daniel and his 6-year-old daughter Lily desperately needed after their exhausting cross-country trip. Lily held tightly onto his hand, her small backpack slipping off one shoulder as she looked around in awe. "Daddy, is this where we're staying?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart. Just for tonight, we both need some rest." They walked into the lobby, where polished marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers above. Guests dressed in elegant suits and designer dresses moved confidently, their voices low, unrefined. Daniel, however, stood out. His jeans were slightly worn, his shirt wrinkled from travel, and there were faint signs of fatigue on his face. Still, he walked with quiet dignity toward the front desk. The receptionist barely looked up at first. When she did, her expression subtly changed. Her polite smile faded into something colder. "More judgmental, can I help you?" she asked, her tone lacking warmth. Daniel nodded calmly. "Yes, I have a reservation under the name Brooks." He placed his ID and confirmation printout on the counter. She glanced at the paper briefly, but didn't type anything into the computer. "I'm sorry, we're fully booked," she said quickly, pushing the paper back toward him. Without checking, Daniel frowned, slightly confused but composed. "Oh, that's strange. I booked this room 3 days ago and received confirmation." His voice remained respectful but firm. Behind him, a couple whispered. Casting sideways glances, another guest raised an eyebrow, clearly judging the situation without knowing the truth. Lily tightened her grip on her father's hand, sensing the tension. "Daddy." "What's wrong?" she whispered. Daniel knelt slightly beside her. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a small misunderstanding." He stood again and faced the receptionist. "Could you please check again?" he asked politely. The woman sighed, clearly irritated. She tapped a few keys lazily, then shrugged. "Like I said, sir, we're fully booked. Maybe you should try somewhere else." Her eyes briefly scanned his appearance again, reinforcing her assumption. Daniel's jaw tightened for a moment, but he controlled his frustration. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. Not for himself, but for the example being set in front of his daughter. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "All right," he said quietly. "Let me just make a quick call." He stepped aside, dialing a number from memory. His voice was calm but serious. "Hello, this is Daniel Brooks. I'm currently at the Manhattan Grand Hotel. I believe there's an issue that needs immediate attention." He paused, listening carefully. "Yes, I'll wait." As he ended the call, the receptionist rolled her eyes. Assuming he was complaining to customer service like any other rejected guest, the lobby returned to its usual rhythm, but a quiet shift in the air was beginning, one that no one except Daniel could yet understand. The atmosphere in the lobby shifted almost instantly. Within minutes of Daniel ending his call, the glass doors swung open with urgency. A sharply dressed man in his early 50s hurried inside, his expression tense and focused. It was the hotel's general manager, Mr. Harrison, a man rarely seen. Rushing behind him followed 2 senior staff members. Equally alarmed guests turned their heads, sensing something unusual unfolding. Mr. Harrison scanned the lobby quickly until his eyes landed on Daniel. The moment of recognition hit him hard. His posture changed immediately, and he walked straight toward him with a mix of respect and panic. "Mr. Brooks," he said, slightly out of breath. "I sincerely apologize for this situation." His voice carried enough authority to silence nearby conversations. The receptionist's confident expression vanished. Her face turned pale as she looked between Daniel and the manager. "Yes, sir," she stammered, confusion written all over her face. She had no idea what was happening, but she knew it wasn't good. Daniel stood calmly, Lily beside him, watching everything quietly. "I made a reservation," he said in a controlled tone. But it seems that wasn't enough. His words weren't loud, but they carried weight. Mr. Harrison immediately nodded. "Your suite has been ready since this morning, sir." There is absolutely no excuse for what happened. A murmur spread through the lobby. Guests who had been watching earlier now looked at Daniel differently. The same man they had silently judged was now being addressed with the highest level of respect. Mr. Harrison turned sharply toward the receptionist. "Why was Mr. Brooks told we were fully booked?" he demanded. The woman froze, unable to answer. Her earlier confidence had completely disappeared. I thought," she began, but her voice faded. There was nothing she could say that would justify her behavior. You didn't check the system properly, Mr. Harrison said firmly, and worse. You made assumptions based on appearance. That is unacceptable in this establishment. His words were sharp, each one echoing in the silent lobby. Daniel looked down at Lily, who was watching closely. He gently squeezed her hand before looking back at the manager. It's not just about the room, he said, it's about respect. Anyone who walks through these doors deserves to be treated fairly. Mr. Harrison nodded immediately. You're absolutely right, sir. He turned to the staff again. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties. The receptionist's eyes widened in shock. 2 other staff members, who had supported her earlier, were also called forward and dismissed. The decision was swift and final. The tension in the room was heavy, but Daniel remained calm. He didn't look pleased, just resolved he wasn't there to punish, but to correct something deeper. Mr. Harrison quickly signaled a bellboy. Please escort Mr. Brooks and his daughter to the presidential suite, he said, and ensure they have everything they need. As they began walking toward the elevators, Lily looked up at her father. Daddy, why did they change? She asked innocently. Daniel smiled softly, kneeling beside her for a moment. Because sometimes people forget what really matters, he said gently, but today they remembered. As the elevator doors closed behind them, the lobby remained quiet, everyone reflecting on the lesson they had just witnessed. It wasn't just about power or status, it was about dignity, respect, and the truth that appearances can be deceiving. If you want, I can now create title description, hashtags and search tags for this full story.